So with this arm that's across, we're gonna have to actually bring that across the body to make space. The easiest spot to see this is from standing position, but it'll work from any position where they put us in a high wrist arm in variation, so long as we can get that arm across, and typically we can always get that arm across. So let's look at it from a standing position with Nick. So let's look at it. Nick has me in the high wrist arm in position here. So you can already see how tight that is on my neck. You can hear it in my voice, right? So the arm inside, we're gonna have to bring that cross body, and I try to get that elbow deep, and it allows a counter force to push into the hips to open my neck. So listen to my voice. I'm gonna keep talking here. You can already hear it's very tight. We make that space and you can already hear how much clearer my voice sounds because we've relieved the pressure against the neck here. Obviously Nick would most likely let go and start thinking about another attack, but we've cleared that submission threat. So we'll look at it from a couple more angles here. So Nick catches this position, we're in standing position. It's on tight straight away. We don't want our arm across. Framing on the hips isn't a good idea for this one, but what is, we bring this arm across, we get elbow deep, and we use that as a counter force to open up our neck here. And now, as you can hear, my voice is completely clear. We can do this on the ground too, which is obviously where it's most likely to be most important to us, right? So Nick has me in the same position on the ground. We use this angle here. Pay close attention to the positioning on my right arm. We're in deep here. We're in a lot of trouble, right? If Nick were to apply it, we tap quick, right? Right arm comes across, and I try to again get it elbow deep. And you can hear my voice, the threat's gone. If Nick were to stay attached here, it will actually be quite easy to back and walk over his hips. And that's how we'd find the space to basically defeat that high wrist variation. Again, you have to be mindful. People are going to chain submission attacks together, so you actually might be vulnerable to a seated katagatame, but we'll cover that in greater detail later. But again, we've got an arm in. The arm trap grip is what's creating the wedge. It's creating the strangle around our neck. So how can we beat it? We bring arm across body, use that elbow to create a counter force against their hip, and that opens us up enough that we still have blood flowing to the brain. Let's cover arm in strangles. So we're talking about the Das and we're talking about the Anaconda. This instruction was obviously front head style defense. So obviously we've covered the three variations of guillotine, arm in, high wrist, high elbow. Now we're going to move into some ones where the arm is trapped in there. So what would they be? Anaconda, Das, and seated katagatame or seated arm triangle. So let's talk about, first of all, how these might come up. For me, the most common way the Das and the Anaconda come up is kind of a triple attack game out of an arm in guillotine. Earlier, I was talking about how impressive the arm in guillotine strangle's ability is to chain into other submission attacks. And again, it's very important that you have a well-balanced sort of triple attack here, right? So let's see how that might come up when someone applies a rotational escape to an arm in guillotine. And again, it will come up because I believe still to this day, the most common escapes for arm in guillotines are going to be rotational, where guys are rolling, and there is a vulnerability there to get caught in other submissions. So obviously, if we're talking about Das's and Anacondas, we'll just quickly cover what they are. If the lock of the hands is behind the head, the submission will be a Das. If the lock is behind the arms, the submission will be an Anaconda, right? So we'll talk about how they both come up, and we'll talk about basically the finishing mechanics for both those submissions. So let's say I have Nick in a basic half guard arm in guillotine here. Nick starts feeling pressure, so he goes, fuck, I better hit a rotational escape. When he hits this rotational escape, I can switch my grip. So if Nick lowers his legs, instead of keeping that chin strap style, I would go palm to palm, and I try to place my elbow behind Nick's elbow here. Because if his elbow gets too wide at this point, we're not going to be able to complete this. So when he starts to roll, I switch off to this grip. So again, palm to palm, the chin strap thumb is going to be facing you. Basically, who's going to hit the submission? You're going to hit the submission. The other hand is going to go palm over palm, and that thumb is going to face towards the opposite direction here. We're going to use our legs to trap the arm. So I lift both legs and I drop the top leg. From here, I slide, maintaining contact from my right hand to my left, and we get to our bicep here. And we can start applying pressure here. And this would be because the lock is behind